Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about what I think about psilocybin, magic mushrooms. This one is very interesting because I first took magic mushrooms back in 2009. My friend grew some in his basement, and he gave me an eighth of them, and I took them. And I had an ego death the first time, and it was phenomenal. There's a lot of gatekeepers in the psychedelic community, fucking assholes who are like, that was an ego death. What, your consciousness didn't completely dissolve into absolute nothingness? You didn't hit the void? Bro, that's not ego death. Dude, shut the fuck up. These people are mainly on Reddit, too, and they're assholes. And I'll get into that later on, but psilocybin, it's very interesting. It literally... Consciousness is frequency, and frequency, so your soul is your conscious perception of this world. How you perceive the world around you through your own view, through your own feelings, your thoughts, your emotions, your hopes, your dreams. That's what your soul is in a nutshell. The brain is just an antenna. It's a conduit for these things, and it is tuned to a certain frequency. So when you take psilocybin, it goes into the serotonin receptor pathway, and there are two pathways for it. One generates serotonin, one is a hallucinogenic pathway, and that's what they call it. And the hallucinogenic pathway is where it activates. And it literally, you should look at an MRI scan of all the different things that are active on psilocybin because it's very interesting. Here's my experience. I'll tell you the story of my first trip. Took it. Went for a walk. We went to the gas station. We got some Mountain Dew and some other shit. Went home. This was back when I still smoked weed, so we were in the basement. They gave me a bowl. They had like this little lemonade stand set up, and they were selling this weed for $200 an ounce. It was Northern Lights, and that was back before things weren't chronic. It was all mids, so there were a lot of people that wanted them. But they had it set up like a little lemon. I'll never forget that, man. They had it set up like a little lemonade stand, and then suddenly I'm sitting there about 40, 50 minutes after I took it, and the wall, this little wooden panel on the wall goes, like that. And I'm like, whoa. And I was looking at it, and I was just so baffled. I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. So I looked at it, and I'm like, wow. And then things started kicking up a little more. Things moved a little more. And then I got into these thought loops. And this is the thing that really trips people up, I think, because your subconscious rises to the surface. Your frequency is rising, and it is rising into the upper astral realm. Your soul really can't go beyond the astral realm, and I'll cover that in another video, without severing the tide of the physical world. But the astral realm, it's the dream realm, and it's like a reflection of every other realm of reality, from the physical to the astral itself, to the mental, to the causal, to the spiritual planes. And the higher astral is a reflection of the spiritual planes. And I got in these thought loops as my frequency's rising. And I remember the first thought that came up, it was a subconscious thought, and it was right, meaning it was right on the back of my subconscious mind, meaning it was probably programmed into me from a very young age, I'm a piece of shit. And that came out like in my thoughts, I kept looping that over and over again in my head, and I was like I lost control of like my physical motor function or whatever, and I was like, things got really heavy, and I was forced to sit down and kind of lay on the couch there. And then I remember feeling twisted up like a pretzel a little bit, like my hand being up like this, but it felt like, I remember comparing it to that twisted hallway from the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time. And I looked at my friend before I was forced to lay down and be twisted up like this pretzel, and I burst out with laughter, and he looked at me and he started laughing. And I got all the thought loops, and I kept going, and I don't know exactly when it happened, but then I was at the peak, and the room's energy was shimmering, like a wave pattern. And all the objects in the room started talking to me. It felt like it was telepathically talking to me in a language I had never heard, never perceived before, but somehow could fully interpret and understand with ease, like it was a language that I knew before I was alive. And they told me, we love you. And I could feel it. And I'm a recovering everything addict. I'm a recovering opioid addict. I'm a recovering amphetamine addict. I used to chase pleasure to fill a void in my life. And this love felt better than any dope I've ever had before. It's like what they tell you, you can actually feel. And that was a very phenomenal thing of note. Whatever they told you, you could feel. So I'd imagine if they told you something crappy, you'd probably feel that too. But I didn't have that. It was a really good experience. I felt blended in with everything in the room. You see those shirts in the closet? Like, I would feel being a part of the shirt. I would feel being that picture on the wall. It's very hard to explain. It's almost like being dead, but from the perspective lens of being in your body when you're alive is the best way I think I can explain it. Psilocybin, and when I was done with it, when the experience finally came down, I felt phenomenal. I felt like all the weight of the world just cleared off of me completely. And I was out in the garage, and I felt like I was wrapped in a warm blanket. And I wanted to go home, but my friends were like, "You gotta wait a couple more hours, bro. You're still kind of up there." I'm like, "All right." So I waited, and I looked down at the basement floor, and it was shimmering and flowing like a river. It was going like that. It was wild. It was wild. And stupidly, I took mushrooms later that year alone on the 4th of July. And I don't know if you ever heard people talk about a trip where they took it and it just felt like too much. This was one of those. And I have never taken a full dose of psilocybin since this trip in 2009 because of this experience. And it turned out to be a good experience, but I got very lucky. What happened was I took it, and I decided to replay the first trip where I would go to the gas station, get trip snacks. But this one came up a lot quicker, and I was driving home, and I was like maybe a block away, and I saw a tree go, whew, and I'm like, oh shit. So I kind of floored it, got home. When I parked, the mirror was melting in my car, okay? And I don't condone driving under the influence. This was back 16 years ago, I think, when I was very young and foolish. I do not condone anything like that whatsoever, not at all. So keep that in mind. I ran upstairs into my apartment, and it came up so quickly, so intensely, so unfathomable. It was like a nuke going off, honestly. It was the most intense thing. I felt like I was going to die. It probably felt more significant than dying, because I think when you die, you just go to the dream realm. It's like transitioning into a dream almost. This was so much more intense. This was the most intense thing I've ever felt in my entire life. It came up so quick, and I was like panicking kind of, and I was like, no, I'm just going to watch TV. And I laid down on my bed, I turned on the TV, and it was that 70s show, and it was the one with the musical where they're singing "I Can't See Me Loving Anybody But You for All My Life," and all the little lights were flickering on the thing, and the lights came out of the TV, and they were flickering all around the room, and I had these strobe lights on the ceiling, and they were shining down on me like I was on a stage. I'm like, no. I turned the TV off. I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna take a nap. I'm gonna just fall asleep. And the bed started feeling like it was going flip, 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 flip. I eventually wound up just going downstairs, telling my mom, because my mom was home. It was a stupid thing to take it when she was home, and I told her I'm tripping balls. She put on Alice in Wonderland for me. The trip was so intense that the white light of God was shining in through the window, and the curtains were blowing as if being swept by a hurricane. And the voice of God was telling me like the secrets of the divine, and light and love and life and death, and it told me it loved me again, and I could feel the love. I looked in the ashtray because I wanted to smoke a cigarette. I saw the ashes in there. They were slithering around like serpents. Okay, like little snakes in the ashtray. The hangers in the closet were pieced apart and flying around the room like little locusts. That part of the movie Alice in Wonderland where the cards are running and chasing her through the maze, they would run, and there would be these multi-rainbow colored trails behind them, and they would run right out of the TV and then spiral off into nothing with multicolored rainbow trails following behind them. It was a very significant experience, but it really shook me to my core, and after that I'm like, I'm not fucking with this like this anymore. If I ever do, it would be 6 months of planning. I would have to make sure everything was perfect, and I've just never gotten around to it since then. But it's psilocybin. It forces you to face all of your demons, and it's the opposite of all other drugs. Other drugs suppress. Psilocybin forces your demons out. It forces you to regurgitate your demons out and face all of your fears. And it's almost like a rite of passage. I can see why the Native Americans give people peyote and send them out into the forest. It's like a rite of passage, man. And that's how it felt for me. but it comes with a price. It's like a double-edged sword. Would I recommend it? The first time, yeah, probably. If you don't have any like mental health issues, yeah, I would say so. If you're not like predisposed to schizophrenia, because the reason this is why I think it causes schizophrenia, because there are spiritual doors, and you have to do work to open these doors individually, one at a time. And let's say there's like 100 doors. What an ego death will do is it'll thrust open 60 of the doors all at once. And some of them are doors you can't really close, at least for a while. So you might be stuck with something that you didn't really want after you're done with it. But if it goes good, it can really fix your shit, man. I mean, it solved my trauma for like 6 months after the first time I took it. I didn't have a care in the world. I didn't have a lot of anxiety. I was a very anxious, angry young man, and I had a lot of anger, and that's what I would hide behind. But I didn't have any of that after I took it. I felt completely cured of like all ailments. So it's very much a double-edged sword. Would I recommend it? I don't know. That's on you. It's on you to figure out. But I find it a very fascinating topic because it's such a controversial thing in our society. I think so. These officials, they say, we don't know what it does. We don't know what its exact effects are. But I think there's people at the very top of society. They probably know, man. They have thousands of years of esoteric knowledge behind them. They know these substances shoot you into higher spiritual realms, and they alter your consciousness and bring it way up to the upper astral. I think they know. But I thought this would be a very interesting thing to talk about. And this isn't something I typically want to talk about, but it's something I did have on the list from the very beginning, and I wanted to get this one out of the way. So let me know what you guys think. Have you ever taken psilocybin? Let me know. And you say a prayer for me, and I'll say a prayer for you, all right? Bye, guys.